Welcome to the Online Business Academy podcast. My name's Jav.
Michael.
And today we've got a very, very, very special guest. He's worked with some world championship boxers. He's worked with UFC fighters, Mr. Reese Silva. Firstly,
welcome.
Thank you for coming, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Just for the record, we just recorded for about half an hour, and it turns out I didn't turn the mics on, so we're just going to go again.
I was going to ask if you're putting that in or not.
Yeah,
you two recorded.
We're gonna. So I'm going to ask literally all the same questions again, hopefully, and we'll get through it. So, yeah, man, firstly, thank you for coming down. Obviously, we've been going back and forth in the DMs, trying to get this organized. So, really grateful to have you here, man, and I appreciate it. So, yeah, man, I kind of just want to get straight into it. When did it start, man? When did, the whole coaching thing, how did you actually get into the health and fitness space?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of the similar route to most people. You just grow up loving sport and getting into playing sport from a young age, pretty much. Started playing football when I was 3 years old. So from a young age, getting into football, not being quite good enough to turn pro. So then you think, what's the next best thing? I also did a lot of jobs, a lot of jobs. Some crazy things I've done, pretty much done everything, hated them all. So when I was at that crossroad of what do I want to do with my life, it kind of made sense to go down the health, fitness, PT and type role. But I guess it really all started, from just having a love of sport from a really early age.
Okay, so in school it was football. What age did you start playing football?
It would have been just before I went to uni, so it would have been about 17, 18.
Okay, and then from there, that's when you moved on to boxing, right?
Yes, yeah. So started boxing, doing some classes and stuff while I was at uni. Played a bit of uni football as well, but you just don't play very much. And then when I got out of uni, that's when I started sort of competing in boxing.
Yeah, okay. And what was you studying in uni?
So kind of going back to when I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, uni wasn't really something that was on my mind. No one I knew had been to uni.
Yeah.
So we sat down in college one day and they're like, oh, your UCAS form hasn't been submitted. I said, what's a UCAS form?
UCAS is a throwback.
Yeah, so she calls me into her office. She's like, right, sit down. Do you want to go uni? I said, I don't know. What does it consist of? So anyway, I'm in this talk for about half an hour max. In that time, I've gone from not really knowing what uni is to signing up to a sports journalism degree. And that happened because she said, what are you interested in? What do you want to do as a job? I said, well, I like sport, like training, maybe something around that. And her words were, that's not a job. That's never going to pay your bills. You need to do something more academic. And she said, well, there's sports journalism. That's close enough. I said, all right. Where does it? She said Leeds. I said, okay, I'll book and see it. Went and saw it the week after and then signed up and went and done a sports journalism degree.
Wow.
Hated it, by the way.
What kind of crazy lady says there's no money? What
Crazy,
year is
isn't it?
this?
This is 2010.
Mate, so it's not like we're in the 80s and there's no one's making money from sport.
Crazy, isn't it?
That's quite crazy, man.
And I hated it. Hated the course. The only reason I stayed was because I enjoyed uni lifestyle. And from a London guy going to Leeds, the nightlife was really good, was living with friends. So that's the only reason I stayed, but I hated the degree. Second I got my graduation, I've never touched it since.
Is that a lot of copywriting kind of
It was, copywriting. It was learning about, the laws around defamation and all that kind of stuff. And even though it was a sports journalism degree, it was only the final year where you did 1 or 2 sports modules.
That's why.
So
it was more about journalism than actual
exactly,
sports.
yeah. And I remember in one of the lectures, the lecturer said to me, he said to everyone, if you don't really love this, you're not passionate, this is not the career for you because there's no money in it and it's long hours. And in my head, I was thinking, that's me. But I'm just gonna So
there must be some life tools that you've gained from that though, from journalism.
I guess copywriting is probably good for social media, especially LinkedIn. Yeah. How to write. I've got quite a good writing style. Apart from that, you being at uni taught me life skills.
Of course.
But apart from that, probably not a lot that applies to what I do really.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of the personal training and that side of things, when did that start for you? When did you start to do that?
So that was, as I mentioned, done loads of jobs that I absolutely hated. I just didn't like any of them. So I eventually just thought, you know what, I really love training, want to get into it. I'd been taking classes at my boxing gym. When you look back, they were terrible, but like circuits and all this kind of stuff. Like training a couple of my mates who had knee injuries on like a muddy field. So I was kind of doing it, but not knowing what I was doing. So I thought, let me get qualified. So I got qualified. And that's when I sort of relocated up to Leeds. And I worked at a Pure Gym, because Pure Gym have got a model where you can choose not to pay any rent, but you can do 12-hour week of classes and cleaning and stuff. So I thought, as a new PT, I'm at least not losing any money. So then I went to Pure Gym and started personal training there.
Okay, so you was doing the 4-hour shifts.
Yeah, cleaning the bikes, doing classes.
I know that grind.
Oh, God.
Okay, so how was that for you, though, in terms of picking up clients? And because obviously now you sit here, you've worked with athletes and high-level athletes, but back then, obviously, just regular people, right? So how was that for you?
So at the start, I was coaching basically anyone that would pay me. There was no clientele. I didn't have my niche. It was just, if you're willing to pay me, I'll coach you.
That's most PTs for you.
Exactly. Yeah, it was. So that's how it started. In terms of sort of getting clients, there were two main ways, really. And that was through your classes, doing really good classes. People like you, ask you questions, and then eventually ask you if you do PT. And the second one was walking around the gym and getting clients. I'm not someone who can do that, because I know how much I hate being interrupted when I'm training. There's some people that through the years at Pure Gym are really good at that. There's one particular guy, like not a good coach at all, but he could whip around the gym 5-10 minutes and have 3-4 clients. He just has gift of the gab. That's not me. So what I did was I started writing articles instead. And I thought, that gives me some authority. That makes me get my knowledge across. It's probably something a little bit different as well, because no one else is doing it. So maybe that makes me stand out a bit. So when I was on shift, whenever Pure Gym's busy, you've been before, they've got like the pods that you go in one and out the other. But when it's busy, there's just a backlog of people. So whoever's on shift had to go and open the fire door. So every week when I was on shift, twice a week, I'd printed off 50 copies of this article that I'd written, go stand by the fire door, open it, and as everyone's leaving, just be like, hey, I wrote an article here, and give out 50 of them. At the bottom of the article, it'd be like, if you need help with your training, I'm doing 30-minute free taster sessions, drop me a message on this number. And people would text me saying, hi, here for the free taster session, do a taster session, and then they'd sell off the back of that. And that's how I got clients, yeah.
That's sick, man.
That's interesting. That's proper innovative.
Yeah, I just, at the time in particular as well, because this is going back years, I was very awkward with approaching people, didn't like it. So for me, it was a way of reaching out to them, but I was giving them something. So it wasn't like I was just asking. I was actually giving them something in return. Yeah. So it made it a bit easier to approach people.
And it's different, right? Because that's a different approach than what probably all the other coaches in that gym doing at the time, innit?
Yeah, I feel like it gave me a little bit of like authority, because it's, not that the articles were probably even any good, but, someone's wrote an article, that's pretty intelligent. You must know what he's on about.
That's a fact.
Yeah. And I think it's just a perception of it was, and then in the end, people looked forward to him, like, oh yeah, Reece White's article that you wrote on this week. So then he had like the accountability of it. But yeah, I think it did in a way probably kind of not make me stand out, but just give me a different sort of tool, a different perception to the people that were training at Pure Gym.
Yeah. Yeah, so when did not the transition, but when did you start to take on athletes then? How did that part?
So that was always my aim once I'd got experience. And after about a year of training general population, I remember thinking this is something I thought I'd absolutely love, but I wasn't quite enjoying it and I didn't really know why. And I sat down, I was like, well, it's because I want to be in the sports industry. I want to train athletes. That's what I'm passionate about. So I sort of set up a plan of how I was going to go about it. And I was into boxing myself. I was competing. So that was the area I wanted to go into. And at the time, boxing S&C, which is really popular now, wasn't as popular then. There was a handful of people doing it. So I sort of set up my plan of, okay, I want to coach fighters. How do I go about doing it? So essentially what I'd done was make flyers, Google all the boxing gyms in and around Leeds, jumped on my bike and rode around all of them and just handing out flyers, asking them if they needed someone to do classes, if they had any fitness classes or strength and conditioning, if they had any fighters who needed S&C. I was like, I'll do it for free. Who needs it? And then I jumped on Instagram as well. I was just cold messaging any fighter that I could find, reaching out to them. Hey, do you have an S&C coach? If not, would you be interested in chatting a little bit more about it. And then those two things allowed me to start getting like eyes on my business in terms of fighting clients. But funnily enough, I was very, very, very fortunate because the first athlete that actually got back in touch with me and wanted to come down was a UFC fighter. So that's like elite level as the first person. But as a young coach and being like, I'm on the right track, is this going to work? Getting a UFC fighter straight away was like,
big boost.
Yeah, exactly. Now that was just, okay, just keep doing more of this because that's the first person. Imagine how many more of these. Then I got like really excited and just kept doing that, growing around more gyms, more DMs, and just hammered that for ages.
Yeah, that's big, man. And I think something that we got to take away from that I think a lot of personal trainers will value is that you did it for free, right?
Yeah.
So you went to all the gyms, you was offering free sessions or free plans for how long? And how long was you willing to do it for free for?
So as long as I needed. But I was essentially coaching Mark Jacasey, who's in the UFC, coached him for about 18 months completely free. And Mick as well, who's a boxer, coached him completely for free. And in my mind, I was like, all right, I'm not getting paid, but he was taking me as part of his team to UFC events. I was in the changing room. I was like cage side, ring walking with him. Yeah. And I was like, experience-wise, you couldn't pay me enough to do that. Like standing in the octagon after his fights and stuff. And the exposure of that, social media content, him posting about me posting about him, was probably more valuable for me in a business in the long term than the income. Because what I was spending money on going out at the time. So I probably just spent it on going out. Whereas I had a fighter, was posting, so I had a boxer and an MMA guy, which was great. So I had two different sports, posting them on my stories, putting content with them on it. It just gave me a little bit of authority. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. But I would have done it for free for however long. Yeah.
It's crazy. We just interviewed one of our coach we work with, PMAC Fitness, who again is quite successful, but in the realm of personal training and training celebrities. And it was the exact same thing, like willing to work for free. You know, and I questioned him like, no, but Richard Branson said don't work for free, right? That's how I heard Richard Branson say. But it's like, it's a common theme that no, when you're willing to work for free, and you know, just it's like delayed gratification. So much can you know just bloom from it. So
I agree, yeah, because as well, I had to respect the fact that this guy, especially Mark, he'd been to America. He trained at ATT, which is like one of the best gyms in America. Trained with Phil Daru, who's probably the #1 MMA strength and conditioning coach in the world. So I was very aware that he knows his stuff. And who's this random guy who's not trained any fighters before? I had no one to show him that I'd worked with. So I had to respect that. So I knew he was way more likely to let me train him if it was no barrier to it. You know, so that was the #1 thing, was actually getting him in. And if that meant taking it for free, then so be it.
Yeah, that's big, man. That's big. So you're doing that for free. When did you actually step away from Pure Gym then? So it got to a point where I had Mick, who's a boxer, I had Mark, who's a UFC fighter, and it sort of reaffirmed that's what I want to do. I want to be the go-to guy for boxing and combat sports. And no kind of disrespect to Pure Gym, but I sort of sat down and looked at it and thought, is this an environment where elite level fighters are going to want to come and train? No. Even just little things like there was no parking and they all drive. And it's just an extra thing where it made it more difficult. And as an elite coach, training elite fighters, I thought I need a better environment that matches it. So there's a gym called Graft House in Leeds, which is like unbelievable facility. Looks really cool. It kind of has the image of being like a high-end place, really good community there. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is the place where people are going to not respect me more, but this is going to give me the perception of being at a better level. So I decided to take the plunge and move over to Pure Gym. Had it all mapped out. My general population clients as well, they were going to move over with me. But within the first month, 95% of them left because just the extra bit of getting a bus from the city centre to Kirkstall was just too much for some of them. And they were like, it's just not going to work. So even though I planned it all, within a month, I had like 3-4 clients left. So I had about 3 weeks at that point to build up my income, to pay for rent, pay for gym rent and all that kind of stuff. So what'd you do?
It's, well, in numerous times through sort of my career, I've found that when you're in those positions of desperation almost and you need it to work, you do.
Pressure.
Exactly, yeah. Pressure. because those times you're feeling tired, you're not going to just chill out because you literally is sink or swim. So basically what I done was very similar to like my approach of getting the first 2 boxes in terms of cold outreach. So I put together a flyer for fighters and said, I'm doing free performance testing, and you get a report on afterwards on where you need to improve. Put it all on socials, asked the guys if they knew anyone, cold message, went back to the boxing gyms, handed out all the flyers, and I managed to get 30 boxers over like 2 weeks come in for testing, wrote up reports, send it out for all of them. And then at the bottom of the report said, for everyone who's done a performance testing, you'll get 50% off your first free month if that's something you're interested in. And 12 of them took up the offer, which meant then I had enough money to break even, not lose money. And then it just kind of snowballed, because once you got 12 boxers coming in or 12 fighters, then the socials are going more, you know, it looks like you're busier. And then all of a sudden, quite quickly, other fighters check out your page and they see it like, oh, this guy's working with a lot of fighters. Maybe I should go work with him. And then it got to the point where they were reaching out to me. And so I could ease off the cold reach a little bit and have that constant influx of leads still coming in.
Okay. So, all right. So firstly, I love that. Obviously, that's like a scorecard.
Scorecard. Daniel Priestley, I believe.
Yeah.
Scorecard marketing.
Pretty much the same concept there. But when you was doing that, how were you leveraging social media with those fighters? For example, was it like you was getting them to post on their stories, or how was you leveraging that?
So they would often post me on their post and like sessions with me, which was really cool. I'd tag them in the stories and they'd share it as well. But what strategy I went for was, just kind of trying to appear as busy as I can, try and create this perception that if you're a combat athlete in Leeds, you have to be working with me because everyone else is. So even when the testing came in, like had the mindset that no one has to know they haven't signed up. They're only there for one session. Literally no one has to know. So you get like 6, 7, 8 different videos, and maybe over the next 2-3 months, once a week, I'd pop on a video and just tag them in it. And so it looked like people coming onto my page, going through my stories, like, oh, this guy's busy doing like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, different fighter, different fighter. And so then eventually that reaches a bigger audience. Then my content was just very specific to fighters, how to improve your punch power, how to make weight, how to, all these kind of things. So they'd view me on the stories, come onto my page, get loads of value from it. And then eventually down the line, either reply to a story like, oh, how do you do this? Ask me a question, or just reach out and say, how much does services cost?
Okay.
The story it's interesting because you get so many people that want to train athletes, right?
It's trendy, isn't it? It's cool.
They want to train athletes, but they don't make it work. Why do you think they don't make it work?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think maybe it's harder now because so many people want to do it. Like when I first started out in combat sports, there was Boxing Science. They were probably like...
Boxing Science is the biggest.
Yeah.
I used to follow them. I used to do the Red Zone running.
Yeah. So they were not just starting out. Yeah, it probably was about just starting out, maybe been there a year. So they were like the main ones. And apart from that, there wasn't a lot of competition as such. Now, if you go on, there's everyone and anyone doing fighters. So I think maybe a little bit of that. I feel like maybe people are a little bit entitled now. They feel like they should be training fighters without having to do their pre sort of work of training general population, of doing their time in the gym, getting their experience. They kind of think that, oh, I can get qualified and just train athletes. I think that probably plays a role as well. And I guess just comes back to how much do you actually want it? Because I feel like people who really want it and they're willing to put in the work, they do make it happen. And I feel like the people who don't make it happen are the ones who look at it and think, oh, that would be cool. But that's as far as it gets.
Like
they don't really, exactly, don't really want to put in the work. They don't want to work for free. They got this impression that maybe they can jump straight into the elite level without having to work their way up. They're not good at dealing with setbacks. And so I don't think it's actually more of a strategy thing, but it's probably more of a personality trait and work ethic type thing, I think. Why do you think?
No, I think exactly what you just said. Because it's crazy, because as much as there's the competition, whatever, your strategy will probably still work today of what you've done. Maybe a little bit of modifications or whatever, but it's probably easier. Because like Jab said, you got scorecard marketing, you got like AI now, you can do it virtually. Send me a video, I don't know, something.
It's funny you mention that actually, because my strategy, I've not thought of it yet till you said that, but my strategy is probably the same now for what I'm doing with my CEOs and entrepreneurs.
Right.
But just modified, like you said.
Yeah.
So rather than riding around on my bike, going to gyms, I'm going on LinkedIn into groups.
Right. Boom.
So it's a slight modification. Yeah. So you brought it up. I've not thought about it, but it probably is quite similar, I'd say. Yeah.
It still works. It still works.
So then actually sticking with that then, obviously you was in a pure gym. We all know here that, most PTs, they don't make it past like 2 years. So what do you think are some of the mistakes that PTs are making who are in the gym right now? Because especially the commercial gyms where the turnover rate for PT, I used to see I do PT in my gym every month. So like what do you think the mistakes they're making?
So there was a few that I saw in terms of pure gym. One would be not having a niche. And I know I kind of contradicted myself because I said you need to train everyone and get your experience. But at some point you do have to niche down, because with your marketing, with your content, with even your personality, who you click with, if you try and appeal to everyone, you're not going to appeal to anyone. All these brands that are successful, all the things you buy, the clothes you wear, the trainers, it's because they appeal to us specifically. They're not saying like, oh, if you're a mum, you can have this as well. But also if you're a young guy, like that's just not how it works. So not having a niche, I think the biggest mistake people make is that they're focused on the cherry on top type stuff. So going into Pure Gym, for example, the amount of new PTs who would come in, not have a client, zero income, and they're spending out on business cards, branded T-shirts, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, you've not even got a client. They apps for them to train their clients on. I'm like, you've not got a client. What's the use of an app? So I think they spend too much money on this stuff that looks good. But actually what you want to do is just get clients in. Even if you're doing the training program on a Google Doc for the start, just get clients in, build it up. So I think that's another mistake. And more kind of nowadays, there's a lot of business mentors who have never built a business themselves, who are now teaching the next generation of PTs on how to build a business. And so they're learning off people who don't even know how to make a business. And so they're in that cycle. And I think that's probably more recent that's happened. But the first two in particular, not having a niche, not spending money on irrelevant stuff, is probably two of the biggest. And then of course going into things more like, especially for in-person PTs, charging per session. Because, someone has a bad day, can't be asked to turn up, text you say, the baby's sick, I can't make it, you don't get paid. So not charging monthly would be a big mistake. And then the final one I would say is not putting in holidays into how they charge clients.
Right.
So what I always used to do was charge them per month, have contracts saying, you miss a session, you lose it. I'll give you another option, but if you can't make that, you lose it. But I used to say prices are based on a 4-week month. So over the course of 12 months, that's 48 weeks, which leaves 4 weeks spare in a year where I get to take holiday because they've not paid for those 4 weeks. So even little things like that when you start, you don't realize how important it is, because as a new PT, taking holiday and you're like, right, I got to do 100 hours this week because I've got to do catch-up sessions and I've got to get them 3 sessions in before because they pay. It's just a nightmare. So I'd say those 4 things, yeah.
Yeah. And with that as well, I think something you mentioned, or something that's kind of been concurrent so far, is like that the ability and the willingness to take risk, and face rejection as well. Because I'm not riding around to 50 gyms, bro. But I think what it does is it gives you that resilience of not being scared to hear no.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be self-employed or run your own business, you got to be willing to hear no.
Yeah, risk is really important. And like numerous times through my career, it's been positions where, do I want to take a risk or not? And I've always chose yes. I've always been very risk averse.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is, and I think there is something to this. If you come from a background of not having anything when you grew up, what's the fear in not having anything?
Right.
It's not there. I came from there once, I'll just do it again.
That's true.
So the fear of losing everything doesn't hold as much weight as to someone who's maybe born into a better upbringing, because now if your fear of losing it, that's the unknown. So I think that plays a part in it, but I've always been risk averse. I've always had the mindset of what's the worst that can happen. Like if it doesn't work out, at least I know. I'd rather know that I'm not good enough to reach a certain level than wonder what if I was good enough? Yeah. So yeah, that's been a common theme throughout my career, that you have to take risks. And yeah, getting used to rejection is one of the most important things you can do. And I'm sure you guys will know, when you get to a certain number of years experience, it's a numbers game. And so what you'll start doing, and this might seem alien to sort of new coaches, what you start doing is just counting the no's and ticking them off. Because you know that X amount of no's, there's a yes coming at some point. And so you actually get more excited about the no's. So I know now when someone at cold outreach or knocking on doors, whatever it might be, instead of being, oh, he doesn't want my program or he doesn't want this, it's like, okay, that's another no. My odds of getting a yes have just gone up.
Yeah.
Let's go get the next one.
Good way to flip it. It's a good way to flip it. So, all right, so when did we get to the stage where you're coaching big names like Dalton Smith, Sonny Edwards, like world champions? When did we get to that level?
Okay, so that was just after moving to Graft House. I'd done the movement assessments, got 12 clients, and I went back on the cold DMs, went back on riding around on my bike because I thought it's worked once. Just repeat it. Let's see what happens. So I did that again. And one of the guys I reached out to, Levi Kinciona, he was a boxer based in Sheffield. He got back in touch, said, oh, it's great timing. Funny you messaged me now. I was actually looking for an S&C coach for my next camp. He came down, joined up. And after about a month, he sort of said to me, because he was getting the train from Sheffield, he's like, it's too much. It's an hour and a half to get here, hour and a half back, hour session. It's a long chunk out of my day. And he'd mentioned before that he had some equipment at the gym. And he'd briefly mentioned he worked at Steel City Gym, but didn't really register with me. Just thought, okay, that's cool. And then he sent me the video and I thought, oh, he's at Steel City Gym. I know there's loads of fighters there. So it could be a good spot to go. And when he sent me the equipment, I was expecting like a couple of dumbbells and a med ball. But Grant, who's the head coach there, had actually had them built an S&C section, sleds, racks, like everything. And I texted him, I was like, why didn't you tell me this earlier? I would have just come to you. So I said, let me drive to you. So I started driving to Sheffield 2-3 times a week. So at the time I was probably losing money on what he was paying me. But I knew if I played the long game, one, familiar in the gym, can meet the other fighters, meet Grant, he gets to see what I'm doing. And I thought if I get good results with Levi, it's almost like free marketing because they're like curious, oh, what's he doing over there? Like, yeah, oh, his engine's getting better. He's looking stronger. And so I had that in the back of my mind that, okay, take the hit on losing money on petrol and that kind of stuff and the time that it takes me to drive there and back. In the long run, this could pay off. And lo and behold, after maybe, not sure exactly how long, but maybe 3 to 6 months, Sonny was preparing for a fight and just sort of said, oh, is it all right if I jump in for the last 2-3 sessions of my camp? Said, yep, sure. There was a fighter called Lee McGregor who was like British Commonwealth champion. His coach was a PT at another pure gym in Sheffield, kept being late, not turning up, not replying to text. He said, can I just jump in for the last month of camp? I said, sure, come in. So I trained those two for like 3-4 weeks for free again. And then after they came back off their holidays after the fight, they said, all right, we want to jump on and do this more regularly. So that was them. And then it just kind of escalated. Dalton was on holiday for about 2 months or something. When he came back in, he started up. There was a guy from Germany who fights a really good level called Dennis. He joined up. And then it just spiraled from there till it got to the point where I just became the sort of head of S&C for the whole gym. And I remained there for the next 6 years.
Wow. That's big. That's big. So what's it like training a world champion boxer, bro? Compared to your Gen Pop clients?
Do you know what? Not that much different. They're just different people. I think fighters in general are like a different breed of people, right? They've all got some kind of ADHD for sure. Like that's just a fighter's thing. They're all a little bit loopy, which I guess you'd have to be to want to get punched in the face for a living. But they're just people, and like coaching is about people. So it's how do you relate to them? How do you get across the information? So essentially with coaching, you're giving everyone the same information, but it's how do you make it relatable to them? What words do you have to say? What cues do you have to give someone? And the great thing with fighters, and especially at the world level, is you don't need to get them to do too much more. You know, general pop, have you done this? Have you done that? Come on, work a bit harder. With fighters, it's the complete opposite. It's all right, relax. Don't do anything else today. Don't go for a run. Chill out. It's the complete opposite. But what I noticed from a business and a personal standpoint is being in that gym 3 times a week made me level up, because I was hanging around all these champions and seeing the discipline, the sacrifices, the long-term gratification. And it's that typical thing, you know, people you spend time with. So I was picking their brains about certain things, like, you know, what about when you're tired, or how's your discipline, and all these things. And it made me level up. But in terms of going back to your question, there's not too much that's different. And if anything, it's actually getting them to do less than needing to make them do more.
Do you think that because you just happen to be working with boxers and fighters, like you said, that's what gave you a different type of energy to grow and push your business forward? Because when I'm hearing, I just went to like Sheffield and I started driving there 3 times a week. It sounds casual, and to me, I'll kind of understand. I'm sure Jav will understand it as well, but a lot of people ain't doing that. They're not going to do that. So do you think it's because, like you said, you've been training boxers, fighters specifically, so you just have a different level of energy? Or
I think so, yeah. I think that's part of it. Like seeing the work they put in, it rubs off on you. And I loved it. I love training fighters. So for me going there, I was excited. At the time, I was going to Leeds on a Tuesday, doing a 6 till 7 a.m. session, leaving gym at 7 to get to Sheffield for 8 a.m., doing conditioning with them, then going to their gym to do strength a couple hours later, finishing at 2, driving to the gym, back in Leeds at 3, and then I was in Leeds 3 till 8, so it was a long day. But for me, it was like, I just loved it. Yeah. I actually really loved it. But yeah, you're completely right, like training fighters specifically. So funny story, when I went into the gym and there was a lot of elite level athletes, and I thought, I got to somehow get buy-in from them. Because going back to your question, actually, what's the difference between training elite level athletes is they don't really need you. They kind of, know what they're doing. They're experts in their sport, right? With a general population person, you're the expert. And they see S&C as something that they need to do, but they don't really want to. They want to be sparring. They want to be doing all this kind of stuff. And so I thought, I need to get buy-in. I need these guys to trust me. Because if I go in and start telling them to do X, Y, and Z, off the bat, they're not going to do it. Because essentially when I went in, I had to change their style of training and adapt it slightly. And so the way I did it was, I thought, what I'm going to do, I'm going to jump in on their conditioning with them. And so they've got this thing called the bowl, right? It's a lap, goes down a hill and then up a hill. And so you do a lap, go down the hill, sprint up, and you had to finish it in 3 minutes. You have a minute rest and you do 6 times. And I thought, I'm going to have to do this and show them that I'm really about it too, and get the respect and show them that, okay, I might not be the fittest here, but I'm going to push. And I started joining in with their conditioning with them for about probably 2-3 months, every Tuesday, every Thursday. And I could tell straight away their perception of me and their respect for me just went up a lot. Because I was like, they were, he's in good shape. He's beating me on these runs now. Yeah. And Sonny, funny enough, was the only one I couldn't beat. But again, that's world level, isn't it?
Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. So like, while you're doing this, you've still got the gym. But what I wanted to ask you, because we was chatting before we even started the pod about like mentorship and stuff. But when you get to this point now, everything you was doing, was that off your own back? Just
I was thinking the same question.
Did you have someone helping you? Because like the idea, even like the articles, like most people ain't gonna do that.
For me, it's the Sheffield thing, bro. It's the fact that he was at the graft house, and then you see the lever, and you said, "Nah, okay, I'm gonna come there." It's the strategicness of it. So that's what I'm thinking as well. Like, did you have a mentor at the time?
So it's funny because I never see myself as having, some people, they're just entrepreneurs. They just got a different level of thinking, and I never see myself as that. But looking back, that was all quite natural to me. It just seemed logical. It just seemed like, why wouldn't I do that? That just seems like the logical thing to do. But I guess looking back on it, it probably is quite an entrepreneurial, strategic mindset. But yeah, it was all off my own back. Like, I couldn't afford to have a mentor back then. Yeah. And so that was just, it was just what I'd come up with. I thought it's worked by getting me clients at Pure Gym. Why not just copy and paste and do it? If you do the same thing, you're going to get the same results. Yeah. So but it just came off my own back.
Was it a vivid goal? It sounds to me like you're someone that had a vivid goal, right? And you just knew there was stepping stones. Everything was just like a stepping stone. I've got to do this so I can get that. I can do it. Would you agree? Was it?
Oh, 100%. So I wrote down, I still got a paper at home. I always look at it like every year. So when I started training fighters, I wrote down that in 3 years, I wanted to have a British champion. And by the end of my career, I wanted to have at least a world champion. And like within 5 years, I'd won with clients every single belt in boxing, from area to then British to Commonwealth, European, world.
Jeez.
So I knew I could recognize that, right? Because even me, like getting into PT, like everything I've always done from a certain point in my life, when I say I got serious, I had a specific goal. So even jumping on the gym floor was specific. I'm going to do gym floor, then I'm going to do something that's a bit more online.
But I guess, yeah, that's a good point. And I guess going back to like the Sheffield thing, for example, maybe subconsciously I was thinking, well, I'm not just driving to Sheffield for the sake of it. I'm doing it because that's getting me close to this goal that I've written down.
Boom.
I mean, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, if I do this, that's one step closer to winning a world title. But subconsciously, if you're making goals, writing them and making them relatable, maybe that is in your thing. Well, it definitely is. It definitely is. Yeah.
100%.
So obviously now you got your own gym. So when did you transition from Graph House to then opening your own facility? Like, how did that take
Still City. Was it Still City after Graph?
Yeah, no, so I was doing them at the same time.
Okay.
Doing them at the same time. So I was Graft House Monday, Wednesday. Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Steel City, Tuesday, Thursday, and some Wednesdays. And this will happen quite quickly. Like it took if there was a graph, it'd be very straight of nothing happening and then a little spike and then like a big spike. It will happen quite quickly. So lockdown happened in March, 2020. And that was just the craziest month. So I just moved into a house with my girlfriend at the time. We'd been together 6 years. Within a month of being in that house, we'd broken up. Lockdown had happened, and then I had to move out the house. and I just spent all my savings that I had left on the house as well.
My days.
So I had no savings, no house, no job. Luckily, my mate, he literally just said to me, well, of course you're going to come stay with me. Like, take however long you need. You're not paying rent. Just get yourself sorted. And so that really helped. And then me and my friend Dan, we started doing online fitness classes. We made a full schedule of classes on Zoom, morning, afternoon, evening, started putting that, charging like a monthly subscription, did that. And then by the time things got back to normal, which is probably like the December of that 2020, I guess lockdown for a lot of people was the time where they could just chill, get out the rat race for a little bit and decide like, what do you actually want to do? And one of my goals was to have my own facility. And so I just thought, well, let's just, going back to the goal setting, let's put it as a goal. Let's start taking action towards it. And it was just opportunity with the perfect time. It was just a recipe for that happening because lockdown happened. So a lot of buildings were derelict. Agents had these buildings and they couldn't get rid of them because no one knew what was going on in the world. And I just thought, fuck it. Let's just get a place. If lockdown happens again, I mean, they're not going to take money I don't have. Like, what's the worst that happens? If lockdown happens and I have to I got no income, like, what can they do? Like, it is what it is. So I just thought, roll the dice, got this gym. And that was in the April of 2021 we opened and just went all in on that. Again, used all the money I had to set it up, equipment, lawyer fees, all that kind of stuff.
It's like a lease agreement kind of
thing. Lease agreement, yeah. So 6-year lease. We put a lease break in after 3 years, where after 3 years you can walk away, not pay anything. And just went all in on it, yeah. So got that open in the April. My mate Dan, who I did the classes with, rang him up, said, I want you to come and do this with me. I think we spoke off air where he was from Pure Gym as well, his regional manager. And they saw him put it on social media and they basically said to him, called him into a meeting and said, it's either Pure Gym or that place. And so he was kind of having this panic. Again, going back, it's risk, that situation. Do you take the risk? Do you roll the dice or do you stay comfortable? And I said to him, I was like, bro, it's going to be a miserable 3 to 6 months. I can't lie, like it's going to be terrible. But I promise after that point, you're going to be way better off. So he took the risk, came over with me, and within 3 months was making more money than he'd ever made in Pure Gym. So again, risk, reward. And yeah, so we had that from the April 2021. Luckily, all my clients obviously came back with me. But at that point, what I did was switch my coaching model to group training because I wanted to earn more money, but not do any more hours. Yeah. So it was everyone in groups of 4 instead. And that's where I switched to.
That's something you talk about, isn't it? That PT should start doing like that semi-private PT rather than the one-to-one.
It's so much more enjoyable. Yeah. Better atmosphere. Like when you got the guys in, there's 4 people there, especially fighters, tunes on, everyone's in a good mood. You got someone like benching, one person's chilling, and then it's way better. And it obviously allows you to earn
more.
Yeah, so much more money, and still make it really affordable for the person on their own. So I switched to that when we got the gym, and just kept running that pretty much.
So like, now you're stepping into management, leadership, which
The full.
Yeah. A lot of people struggle with that. So what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the skills and traits you had to pick up becoming a manager, a leader of a team?
So for me, and I guess it comes back to how you're raised and family situations and things like that. I've always been a lone wolf. I don't ask for help. I don't really talk about if I've had a down day, which is probably bad, but I just deal with stuff myself. I'm like, why would I want to bother everyone else? Like, I'm good. I'm going to sort it, get it done. So even now, like family, they know what I do. They wouldn't know the ins and outs of it. So I've always been a lone wolf. So that was the hardest thing for me, because at the start in particular, I was kind of reflecting that attitude on the coaches working at the gym. So if they came to me with an issue, it's not that I wouldn't help them. Of course I would. But I was kind of like, you guys need to take responsibility. Like, come on. You need to solve this. You can do it. Have some drive. And not realizing not everyone's the same as me. Not everyone's got the same mindset. Not everyone's got the same personality traits. So that was the biggest change I had to make. Be more vulnerable, as in open up and show my flaws. Because if I didn't show them my flaws, they were never going to show me theirs. They'd never come to me and open up if they were struggling. So that was a big one. Being more empathetic. Maybe just a bit more understanding, like, okay, this person is struggling. How can I help them? Maybe not be so direct, but it was so alien to me because that's just not the way I've been brought up and not the way I'm wired. You got a problem. The only way you're getting out of it is you fixing it. So go fix it. Whereas I had to take a step back, be empathetic, be more understanding, be more vulnerable. And that I would say was the hardest thing. But funny enough, actually, not only did it help in the business side of things, but in relationships as well. So with my next kind of girlfriend who I'm with now, I'm way more empathetic, way more understanding. And it's actually like, okay, this is good. There's carryover here.
Mm-hmm. That's sick. That's interesting. And then, so now you're doing a lot, because now you got your own gym. Mm-hmm. You got the boxers. Do you still train the boxers while having your own gym?
Yeah. Still in. So all boxers at my gym, but Leeds based. And then I'm in Steel City, still going there.
Doing that. Okay.
Yeah.
So at what stage did you start to transition to online then? Or like start even thinking about doing online stuff?
So this was 12 months ago. So July 2023, I relocated to London. And that was like, okay, I'm going all in on online. Again, when I make a decision, I want to do something, I just go after it. And I'm thinking, what's the worst that can happen? Because in my head, the gym's there. We've got the lease till 2027. If it all goes wrong, rent a house, go back, do what I was doing. And I think I don't have the embarrassment of going back. I think a lot of people don't take the risk because it's not even if they fail, it's if they have to admit they've failed and how it looks at, it's the same reason why people don't want to downgrade houses. They'd rather struggle financially than buy a smaller house. But I've just got the mindset that worst happens, I'll go back and message everyone and be like, hey, it didn't work in London, I'm back, and that's it. And so I just went all in, and the decision came because, well, my family's from London. I grew up in Stratford. And I'd always had one eye on going back. My girlfriend got a job at Deloitte, so kind of things were aligning. But from a lifestyle point of view, it's like reverse engineering. What I always done, and I've always been guilty of, building a business and adapting my life around the business. Whereas now, maybe it's being post-30, I'm not sure. I want to build my life, set that out how I want it to look in a perfect scenario, and then create the business that allows me to live that life.
Right. That's something that we've been...
and that meant going online, unfortunately. That meant I couldn't have the freedom of time and travel if I've got to be in a gym 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So it was about building the business that allowed me to live the life I want, and that meant going online.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful, man. I see a lot of like risk taking. Is that the fighter in you though?
Because you take a lot of risks.
Is that the fight? like it's to me, I get it. It's like you're speaking my language, but I just know it's not the language of the majority.
So I've done a lot of. I'm very interested in mindset and all these kind of things. So I've done a lot of therapy sessions just to find out, like, why do I make certain decisions? Like, why do I think the way I do? And it's interesting because I've got a mindset coach at the minute, and he says it's something actually he wants me to do less of, which sounds weird because every time I've taken a risk, it's accelerated me on somewhere else. But he said I'm addicted to the feeling of overcoming a risk. So he says what you actually sometimes might even be doing is almost self-sabotaging a little bit. So then you're in a position of, it's fight or flight now, it's sink or swim. And the feeling that you get of getting out of it and telling people about it, you're addicted to. He's like, if you want to have the sustainability and, have the business you want, you have to be comfortable with never being in a rock bottom place again. And for me, that's hard. So I'm trying to rewire that, but I think that's where it comes from a little bit. And I think, going back to what I said earlier, it comes from a place of, I'm not scared of having nothing because I've done it before. Like, I know I'll survive. I don't need a lot. If I'm living in a 1-bedroom, small flat, studio apartment, I'm not going out for dinner, I can survive. One of my biggest strengths as a person, I would say, is that I can out-survive anyone. I will out-struggle anyone. And so I think it comes maybe to that it just doesn't have any fear for me.
That's powerful that you said that, because earlier when you said that about, coming from like having less, like a background where you've had less, it makes you more risk averse, it makes you more whatever. And I did think that because that's something I've learned on my own journey as well, that sometimes when you're a big risk taker like me, I'm about to go skydiving in a couple of days. Like I'll do I love risk in it. But the thing with that is, like you said, it does come from a place of self-sabotage because you're willing to risk it all even when you don't need to risk it all. Do you know what I'm trying to say to you?
Yeah.
But because you're obsessed with like that nothing to something that's just,
Absolutely. And that's going to be something that if I want to go up to the next level, that's something I've got to leave behind.
It's more boring. It's like life is generally more boring when you're trying to like level up, as you say, because the wealthy, because interesting, like you were saying it earlier, you said that like, if you're from a low income or whatever background, you love to take risks. The wealthy are more like they got something to say, but that's actually what keeps them rich.
Exactly, yeah.
You know what I'm
I've got a list on my phone at the minute that my mindset coach is getting me to put together, and it's like it's put as a title as low income skill or a low income trait that I have. So every time I do something that I recognize is something like that, I'll add it to the list. And the amount of things I do that are just like holding me
that's a good one, man.
That level is crazy. Yeah. It is crazy. And, if you want to go up to the next level, you just got to be comfortable with like, you're never going to be at a place where it's sink or swim again. You can't be.
So with that then, obviously the transition to online, what did you do with the clients that you had in Leeds?
So again, I guess it was quite strategic. So what I did was to because I realized I was at risk of losing all my clients, which wouldn't have been great. And so I needed to give them something in return. So what I did was I sort of said, for new clients, this is going to be the price, but yours is frozen for the next 12 months. You're only going to pay what you are now. In addition to that, I'm giving you this, and this as an addition. So we're going to do a call once a week, going to get a nutritionist on board who's going to do your nutrition. So they will feel like they were getting something. And then I said, I'm going to come up to Leeds once a month still, and we'll do a session and catch up, go for any exercises for your next block. With the Sheffield gym, that was like my monthly recurring revenue that was going to allow me to break even while I built up the London thing. And then as situation would happen, I had to leave the gym because there was a couple of bits, and also it was costing me loads of time traveling there and home. Hotels, I was doing like £800 a month for 2 nights. And then I was getting like achy from driving all the time, getting bored. I was losing time where I couldn't work on my online because I'm in the car for 6 hours.
I hate driving. That's one of the big one thing I learned after traveling. I hate driving. I don't want to drive for more than an hour.
See, I don't mind it, but when it was like 3 hours, 3 times a week, too much. So long story short, I lost my monthly recurring revenue overnight. And I decided to leave the Sheffield gym, which was probably the hardest decision of the whole thing because that was 6 of the most elite clients. And so it was tough, over so many years, you kind of get attached to that. And that's kind of your value and your identity. So I did that. But the most sort of stressful thing was, okay, that buffer of monthly income now I've lost. So now I'm in that position again, like we just spoke about, where, okay, I'm back here. I need to make this work over the next month. And then just got to work after that point.
Okay, so when you come to London, the gym in Leeds is still running. You lose those clients too, or?
So most of them went online with me.
Okay.
And I was traveling up once a month, and now it's like once every other month.
Okay, and then you got the team managing that gym.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about online then, man. So like, how did that? Now, obviously, it's been a year. What was like your first steps? Because I know when I first started online, I tried on my own for like the first 2-3 months before I looked into getting any help. Did all right. What I used to do is I used to look at other coaches and copy what they were doing. That was my starting point. So like, how did you get started with the online then?
Do you know, I very much underestimated how different in-person online is. In my head, it was the same, just online. But it's like a new business. So essentially what I'd done was started my business from scratch, because now I'm online rather than in person. I'm coaching CEOs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, not fighters. All my social media following is dead pretty much, because I'm not coaching those people anymore. So essentially started from scratch. And after about 6 months, I was just like, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. Tried to go on my own up to that point. I thought I need help. I could figure this out, and it might take a year, 2 years, or I can pay someone who knows the answer and I can get this done in the next 3 months, at least get the ball rolling. So then I paid on a mentorship, got that cracking. They gave me some ideas straight away to implement, and just got to work doing that. And then the business essentially came, go back to your point earlier, what I did back in the day, cold calling, going around gyms, but just modified. So LinkedIn, Instagram were my gyms, and I was going within those and reaching out to people who fit my demographic, giving them something, freebies, a free coaching session online or whatever it might be, to get them in, and then trying to sell off the back of that.
Okay. And like, so you took your time, but eventually you looked into getting help. A lot of people would probably keep trying on their own. So like, what made you decide that, cool, I know I need help with this? Like, what was the tipping point?
Just impatience, really. Okay. I just got to the point where I thought, okay, I've been going at this for 6 months and I've not really seen any improvement. How long is it going to take? I just want to get this, at least know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Don't need to necessarily get results. But at the moment, I'm in this jungle of, I don't know which way to go. And I could go that way, not be right that way. And it could take 2-3 years. So it was just, okay, let me just pay someone who's done it. Let me get someone who literally knows what to do on these Instagram, LinkedIn, knows how to, write content for these elite CEOs and entrepreneurs, and just pick their brains. Because that's essentially what mentorship is, isn't it? You're just paying for time, or you're paying for saving time. And so that was why I made the decision, because I don't want to waste any more time on my own.
You're seasoned in business at that time. You know, and that's where I think the difference is from these people. Like a lot of coaches, PTs, they haven't done business. They ain't opened up a facility. They haven't built up a business from scratch. So a lot of people don't understand that, I'd rather just pay the mentor this time. You know what I mean? Let me just pay someone. I've got the money. Let me just do it.
Again, that's the opposite of what I said about poor income traits. Rich income trait is investing. And so sometimes one of the biggest clues that I have to really trigger in my mind is when something feels like, I don't feel that feels like the right decision. I'm like, okay, that's the decision I need to make because my brain wants me to stay on that kind of poor income habits. Don't invest, cut back, do it yourself, find the cheapest way. But then I'm like, no, mentor, that's where you grow. So I always look out for those that feels like the wrong decision. And I just that's the right decision. Let me do it.
So, and obviously I started to notice, I was already following you on IG, but I started to notice that you were heavy on LinkedIn. Was that before you had a mentor, or was you, or did
so
that?
That was a mentor. Yeah, that was a mentor. So it was a guy actually, we worked together with Dalton as part of the team, got to chat in, really got on. He mentored me for 6 months. And then he actually trained with me. I coached him for 6 months. And now we're just friends who catch up once a week, once a month, and we'll just throw ideas around. And he's very successful on LinkedIn for his business. And he sort of said, you need to be on this platform now for the CEO type thing. He's like, if you're selling anything high end, LinkedIn's the place. And so he was the one that sort of initially got the idea for me. And then I sort of just ran it and trialed and errored from there.
Okay. And I think it will be good, yeah. I want your opinion on this.
Go on.
Obviously, we got a lot of PTs and trainers. What would you say if you was to compare LinkedIn and IG? What would you say is what's the pros and cons of each, or the differences?
So I'd say LinkedIn I really like because it feels like it's not got your typical British mindset to success. There's a real toxic traits we have. Like
We
Brits
talk
don't like
about
to
that all
see
the time.
people doing well. They'll tell you why something's not possible. You'll say, oh, I'm going to do this. And they'll say, no, you're not. You can't do that. There's whereas LinkedIn seems to be like a bubble of people pushing each other and bigging each other up, which I quite like. And it's a place where you're going to find those more kind of high net individuals. So if you're selling anything high end, that's going to be a better place to be. And in terms of like even just other entrepreneurs, it's a great place. Instagram is good for more volume, I would say. So if you've got like a lower priced product where you want to sell more, that's probably a really good place. The content side of it's a lot better, I think. I like making reels and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd say so. The way I see it is, so my program at the minute is in 3 tiers. So LinkedIn would be for like the high end or the middle one, whereas the Instagram would be more in the sort of first introduction tier. And that's kind of the way that I split it up.
Okay. So at this stage with the online, for you, like what's the next step? Like what's the goal for you? Because obviously you've moved. Have you fully moved away from athletes, or were you still?
So I still work with them on like a online basis. Like there'll be a handful, but 90% of the time is going to be my online thing. So my end goal now is I've just launched my kind of health and performance community for entrepreneurs and business leaders. And my end goal over the next kind of 3 to 5 years is to make that the number one community in the UK for business leaders and entrepreneurs. I want to make it the best thing. So that's what I'll be working towards, is just making that like number one. I don't want there to be a better program for those guys. I want it to be like the best program. Everything they need is there.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so then in terms of, everyone kind of throws out that term, high performance. What does that mean to you then?
So yeah, I think it's, for me, it comes down to 3 areas. So I think everyone thinks high performance is maybe an athlete's thing. And essentially what I'm doing is bringing like my lessons from the elite athletes world and bringing it into the business world. But for me, high performance is 3 areas: health, careers, and relationships. And you can't be a high performer if one of those is lacking. So, you know, generally speaking, you might see an entrepreneur, I've been this guy, business going really well, but you're eating crap, feel crap, low energy, not training. Relationships are maybe not as good as well because you're working all the time, not seeing your family as much. So for me, high performance is, are you at your best or as close to your best as you can be in all 3 of those areas? That's what high performance to me is. So it's like, okay, how do we do that? And for me, health is the pillar that holds the other 2 up. Health should be number 1. And a lot of the time, that's the one people sacrifice for the other 2. But if you look after your health, if you're training, eating well, lifestyle, sleeping, all that kind of stuff, mindset, that allows you to be at your best in your career and your relationships. And not only will you earn more money, not will you get more success, you'll have deeper connections, you'll have a better friendship group, you have better family ties, all these things that actually people want. Like when we think about it, people want it. Initially, they might say the money, but what they really want is a wife, a relationship that's blossoming. They want the kids to have a great relationship with their kids, great relationship with their family. They want the business to be doing well, and they want to be confident, look in shape, and be really energetic. So for me, high performance is those 3 areas, and health is the one that underpins the other 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's powerful, by the way. Where do you go? What's your go-to for like getting your thoughts together, getting your ideas together, you know, and because like when Jav asked what your online or what the next goal was, you just knew, you know, you was quite sure of it. So just for a lot of coaches and people in nowadays anyway who aren't really collecting their thoughts as well, what do you?
So and I'm not someone who's like every quarter or every month I do this. I can't lie, I don't. But every once in a while, so maybe it's every 2 months on average, I'll just sit down and write what I want my life to be like. So typically on Wednesday, I did this exact thing. Piece of A4 paper, I wrote down what's the priority in my life. So I wrote traveling, living somewhere that's not wintry and cold, family time, making sure I'm around for when I have kids, going and eating at nice places, having the option to travel when I want. These are all the things I wrote. I was like, okay, so what does a typical day look like? And I wrote down that I'd like to wake up, take the dog for a walk, go train, do an ice bath, have a coffee, then start work at like 9:30, 10. Work till about 3, really productive. And then 3 o'clock onwards is like my free time. Can do what I want. And so then the third bit is, okay, what does the business need to look like to allow me to do that, right? And so let's say, for example, I can't do that because at the moment I'm on LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, the busiest time, where you get most traction is 8 a.m.
Yeah, okay.
So that goes against me having my morning routine I want. So it's like, okay, so how do I train that? Well, if I can get 10 people into my online community, make it really good, absolutely smash results, service, all that kind of things, and make it so good that they then tell their friends, and I can get another 10 people and make referrals now my main thing of getting leads, I can ease off of LinkedIn and I can have that morning routine. Okay, so how many clients would I need to financially be able to go on holiday when I want? And reverse engineer it. So I'd be like, okay, maybe in a year, I need 20 people or 10 people on my highest program. I need 5 to 10 on the middle, and I need 20 people on the low end one. That's what my business looks like. So now I've got the numbers. Okay, so now how do I get those people? And just start working it back and get to the point where I've basically got a daily to-do list. Like, okay, to get that endpoint of what I want, I need to send this many cold messages. I need to do this, maybe 5 things a day that I need to do. Then you just go do them 5 days, 5 things a day, and then the rest of it takes care of itself. And then the other thing, which I should mention, is on my notes page on my phone. If I opened it up, you'll just see different notes. One's like the poor person's traits that I've got. One might be biggest flaws. One might be I got so much stuff on that. One might be goals. One might be cool things I want to do before I'm 35. And like, I just got loads of those as well. So whenever I'm out on a dog walk usually, or in the shower, things just pop to my head. I just write it down on that list. And then maybe every 6 months I'll go through them and be like, nah, that was rubbish. I was just in a spur of a moment. Because I think with time, if you still want to do something 6 months later, it's like, okay, how do we get this thing? And then I'll take all those notes, put them on a bit of paper, and do the same process. Okay, so how do the business need to look for me to do those things?
Sick. So you're very analytical as well, because I think, and that's one of the things that I moan at coaches for, is like not tracking data, stuff like that. Like,
it's life's so much peaceful like that, bro. Like when you just know, all right, I need to get to this.
Yeah.
Let me reverse engineer it. These are the numbers, boom. Do you know what I mean?
I'm quite an anxious person as well. So I find as soon as I do something like that, my anxiety completely goes. I always know when I need to do it, usually, because I'll go to bed and I'll be lying in bed and not be able to sleep. That's my cue of I need to sit down and do that task. That's why I say I don't actually have it every quarter. It's just when that happens, like 3 nights in a row, I'm like, okay, there's something on my mind here. Something's not aligning. And as soon as I write it down, I've got the to-do list and I'm taking action, my anxiety goes. Yeah. And I think it's just because now it's like, well, the chances of you, when you do nothing, the chance of you getting success is 0. So as soon as you start, you've at least got a 1% chance. So the anxiety just goes.
Yeah, that's big. That's powerful. I think that obviously you're someone that's not afraid to like invest in getting help with this kind of stuff. So that helps, because when you told me you got a mindset coach, you're already thinking, okay, you're not just thinking about money as well. You're thinking about your overall performance as an individual. So obviously you as a high performance coach for CEOs and businessmen and business people, what are some of the things that you're doing for yourself to stay at high performance?
Okay. So my morning has to be, I get up, take the dog out straight away. That's just like, I need my hour of my time and with him. Come back, coffee. I do have an electrolyte drink as well, like just with water. But I'll sit down, have a coffee, and then I do like a 5-minute visualization type thing. So the first minute is thinking about something I'm grateful for. Second minute is, oh, that's my missus calling me.
Don't worry, tell her we're nearly done. We're nearly done.
Should I actually answer it?
Yeah, go through, bro.
No, joking. Let me cut it off. Can I call you back? I'm on a podcast. Yeah, we cut it out. What was I at? Electrolyte drink, yeah. So I do visualization, second minute. So it's gratitude first minute. Second minute is what's my big goal. So really thinking about that. What does it look like? What things am I doing? Picturing myself in Spain in the winter and stuff like that. Then it's who do I have to be to have those things? So what qualities do I need to work out? See myself as that. And then it's what does today look like? So picture myself doing the task, having good gym sessions, and then the final minute's just a few little deep breaths. 5 minutes, nice and easy, because when it's too long, like people do like meditation for an hour, that's not for me. I need it short and sharp. Same. And that's basically it. Apart from training as well, and getting into bed 9.5 hours before I need to be up, that's all. That's my doing those things just allows everything else to fall into place.
Yeah, and obviously as someone that played sports, do do you do anything competitive anymore?
Yeah, so I started playing football again on a Sunday, which I really enjoy. I thought, I've got 2-3 years left. I might as well try. So football, which I absolutely love. And that's going to be the thing I do for like next 2 more seasons, probably, I think. And then I do like to test myself by doing like different events. So I was supposed to do Europe's Toughest Mudder about a month ago, which is 12 hours, who can get the most laps of a 10K course. So I'd set a goal to hit 80K. In the 12 hours. Training was like going unbelievably. So the football season finished. I had like 9 weeks to train for it. It was going really well. I ran a marathon in like 3.5 hours in part of the training. So I was flying. There was like 2 weeks left. But sillily of me, we had a pre-season tour to Lisbon and I went and played. It was on a terrible 3G pitch. We played like 4 games in 2 days.
Injury.
That on top of the marathon was just too much. Both my Achilles got like little tears in. I couldn't walk for like 3 weeks. Okay. Went to the physio and he was like, no, you can't do this event. You're not going to thing it. So I've deferred it to next year. And when the football season finishes, I will not be doing any football until I've done that event. But so it'll be football. And then I like to do other challenges. Like between now and 35, 40, I just want to push my body and see, one, how strong my body is, but my mind as well. Like, I think I got a good mindset, but I want to get to the point where I'm breaking and see actually if I do have a good mindset or not.
Yeah, no, I feel you because like I haven't done anything competitive in like three years now. So for me, it's like, okay, I decided I'm going to have a fight before the end of the year.
Okay.
Like, okay, I'll have to do it now.
Yeah.
I told myself I'm going to do it.
And now you've told me, now you've told someone else.
That's on the podcast.
Yeah.
If I ain't done it,
then
you have to do it.
That's powerful though, the accountability of just telling someone, especially when it's on
public.
I used to do that a lot on Instagram. Just used to put my goals out there because I'm like, someone's going to see it and ask me about it.
Yeah.
And it does give you a kick up the butt.
And I think that like, you need that though, because like you're going to, even if it's 1%, you're going to train a little bit harder. You're going to put in that work.
Yeah.
And I think you need that, man.
Yeah.
It's important. So yeah, like I guess really before we kind of wrap this up, the goal is to have the high performance group for the CEOs. Is there anything outside of the fitness space that you're doing or like trying to get into?
So more life design. We spoke about it outside while we were waiting. Like I'm sick of the British winter. Yeah. So my next goal is to do winters in Spain. I'd like to probably permanently live somewhere else, but it's difficult because with like my missus' career as well, trying to make sure we can go somewhere where she's not getting career stunted. Right. So I think ideal situation maybe be 6 to 8 months in England and then go Spain for like 3 to 4, 5 months. But apart from that, just kind of working on myself really. I know it's kind of like a cliche answer, but just I've been very guilty of just business for a long time. Whereas now I just want to get a bit more balance, spend more time with family, what I always think about now is 32, by 35, between 35 and 37, I'm going to have a family.
Right.
So now what I always think in my decisions is what situation do I want my kids to be brought up in? What hours do I do at work? What lifestyle? What am I like? And I always think about that and I just want to build into whatever that is. But yeah, not really a lot else after that. I just like eating food. Coffee and food's my thing. Yeah. Like I've stopped drinking as much now, but it's just literally work, football, and coffee and food.
Sick. You got any questions?
No, I think, yeah.
Cool. So all right. What I always like to do, yeah, is always like to ask this last question, man, just to round it off. And it's a very simple question. If you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't change anything. Do exactly the same, because I'm a big believer in without everything being exactly the same, I wouldn't be right here now. And yeah, you could argue that you could do some things differently, but I think if you would have, let's say in any of those points where you hit a bottom point where you had to make it work, if you didn't go through that, you wouldn't have learned whatever you need to learn to then do the next thing. So I would just say, just do the same thing you've done before. No matter how good, no bad, just do it. It's all led to the point we're at now.
Sick. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you coming down. I'm glad we got it done.
Yeah.
After a little while, a few back and forth, so we made it happen, man. And I'll be interested to see the group. I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like, continuing to see your growth online, man, because I do see your content all the time. And I like it. So
Appreciate it.
I want to see more of it, man.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully get you back on as well, man.
Yeah.
I can tell that like even in a year's time, like everything's just gonna be even more different and so many more things. So it'll be good,
For
man.
sure. Let's do it.
Cool. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're going on a tear. We're trying to bring as many quality guests as possible, and Reese is one of them, probably one of the best so far. So yeah, we'll see you very soon. The OHB podcast, over and out. Peace. Boom.